Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Red, and today I'm going to be reading some r/ProRevenge. I know you guys like this, so let's get into it. Did to my neighbor what they did to others. To start, I bought a house with the intention of doing a flip. When I moved in, the self-appointed block captain let me know who they were the first day. Sadly, they were my next door neighbors. I tried to be friendly, but listening to them, I realized how horrible they were and tried to still be civil. My significant other kept saying, "Just wait for it to be our turn." They bragged about, through their contacts with the city, forcing people to make improvements on their houses, getting undesirable renters out of the houses, and just harassing people in general. As I worked on flipping my house, the wife became a worse thorn in my side. To start, she demanded I put up a fence so people would quit cutting through my yard and scaring her. Then, her and the husband demanded I take care of the weeds in the yard or they will do it and bill me. After that, a storm caused a tree to scrape their shingles and they asked for $1,200 to replace them. The tree was there before I moved in, and by code, they're responsible to cut back the branches to the property line. When I wouldn't pay, they had a relative jump my fence and cut the trees down. Needless to say, I began to ignore them, so she became a constant gnat and moved on to another target. Then, one day as I was tearing down my deck for a patio, I realized she put a feral cat colony on a section of my property. I had wondered why all the stray cats were around, and I finally found out. I reached out to the city and demanded it be removed, but they said she followed the law on getting it in place. As I tried to get it shut down, she began unhinged behavior, from standing in her window staring at me, yelling out the window at me, to hitting the fence with items to scare my dog. Here my revenge started. I started by filing an HRO, harassment restraining order, against the wife and had it granted ex parte with the evidence I provided. Of course, she contested it as it was defamatory to her character. Before the hearing, the husband tried to physically intimidate me. So I filed one against him, and it was also granted ex parte. In the hearing, it came up that there was an HRO against the husband as well. They dodged being served until I had it published as a means of service. I started to make complaints about them and their house. Also, I made police calls when necessary. As I did this, the other neighbors began to realize they could do to the bad neighbors what they had done to them and others. For example, as I was having my front door replaced, needing a building work permit, I knew they were doing internal remodeling, so I called a city inspector and they were fined for not having a permit. As she ranted at the inspector, he looked at my window and saw I had mine displayed. Their back porch became hoarded, so I made another call to the city inspector and they had to clear it out. Then they had a broken window on the porch door, so I called an inspector and they had to replace the door. Next, the paint on their house was peeling, so I called an inspector and they had to repaint. The inspector also found the wood underneath was rotted along with their front porch, which is sloping. So, they needed to fix the front porch, sections of wood, and repaint. Through all this, they had up cameras to prove they were not doing the things I said, like hitting the fence. They also pointed a camera at my backyard. As it was legal to point a camera into my yard, and a part of my HRO was her intrusive watching behaviours, I gave the camera the middle finger on my way to and from my garage. When she complained, with the city tiring of her, their response was she was admitting to intrusively watching me. The fight over the cat colony came to an end when I realised one of the cats had a serious disease and I began to capture them and turn them into animal control. Don't worry, animal control was part of the feral cat program, so they would not be put down, but the neighbour would have to pay a fine to get each cat out or have the colony closed. Finally, I caught the sick one and it had rabies. Part of the program was for her to capture each new cat and have it vaccinated, something she admitted willingly to not doing on her GoFundMe for the colony. Soon I had the GoFundMe shut down when I provided the evidence she was not using the funds as she stated they were going to be used. The city now had to act to close the colony. The person at animal control who wouldn't respond to my complaints was fired. The neighbours called in a city mediator who we met with, presented all the evidence and said we would not meet with them, and provided extremely racist tweets they made about neighbours. The city cut ties with them as community leaders. With their power to bully gone and having spent what I can only imagine in fines and repairs, like they did to numerous other neighbours. After 14 years, they sold their house and moved out, way out to the suburbs, where they only have one neighbour about 50 yards away. They knew I was wrapping up my flip and would be out in less than a year. Without being able to bully their neighbours, with people having their back, they seemed to have no further reason to stay. Needless to say, I did several more things to wear them down. Finally, when I listed my house, it was sold while theirs was still on the market. As a final FU to them, I reported to the county they had both the new and old house listed as their homestead, meaning they were paying less in property taxes, so they got hit with more fines on my way out. Like, I understand reporting things that are a serious safety hazard, but being petty about it, they deserved everything they got. Alright, here is our next story. Fired from last job, but I got the last laugh. I worked at a retail chain that sold pet supplies and products. When I started working there, it was great, family owned, and everyone I worked with was fantastic. The owners eventually wanted to retire and sold the small chain to an investment group. Once the investment group took over, almost all but a few employees were let go, forced out, or just quit. I hung on for a little while longer before I got promoted at my other job. New company brings in new manager to my store. My store was the top performing store in the entire chain, bringing in about 10 to 12,000 a day on average. It was always more on weekends and especially around the holidays. The new manager is a Mr. Company man. Company told him they only want employees around for 2 to 3 years. Myself and 2 others had been there 10 plus years. So naturally he began ruffling feathers and giving us all a hard time. Unfortunately, he decided on me first. Mr. Company man found out I worked 2 jobs. The 2 jobs are not in related fields, so there was no chance of any conflicts of interest on my end. However, my second job requires me to work nights and weekends. When Mr. Company Man found this out, he demanded I work nights, weekends there, so it was fair for everyone. I didn't work nights and weekends there because I was the store's only OSHA certified forklift operator, and deliveries didn't come at night. They came weekday mornings, every day. Mr. Company Man didn't want to hear that, and he told me that I either had to work nights and weekends, or that day would be my last day. I told him, "Don't threaten me with a good time. I suppose today is my last day then." I was pretty pissed about that, but it's not a big deal now. Ended up being the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I went home early, didn't finish my shift because F 'em. But when I got home, I decided to call my local OSHA inspector and report them for not having a certified operator on staff, as well as numerous other hazards. Needless to say, they lost close to 3 weeks' profit from all the violations the inspector found. I was surprised they even showed up. In my state, the inspector will call you back after an inspection and tell you if your claims were founded or not. Mine were. And Mr. Company Man got his ass chewed out so bad he ended up quitting. You know, management is a special skill, and just wanting to stick your head up the butt of the corporation does not make you a good manager. Those were some fun r/ProRevenge stories, read by Red. If you liked them, please give the video a like as well, and subscribe too, because I make videos every day just for you. Thanks so much for watching today, guys. Bye bye.